The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Good morning, Ph.D. It is Monday, June the 9th, 2025, and we have a great show for you today. I'm going to bring on Brian Hooker in a second, and we're going to break down some misinformation for you. And then we have Nurse Angela coming on to talk about SIDS, a very important conversation. And then I'll be handing over to Claire Dooley, who's a fantastic guest today for Mothers to Be. And then we have our Gardasil story of the day. So first up is with Brian Hooker. We are going to be talking about an article it's NBC. NBC have been talking nonsense, telling lies. And so we're going to break this article down for you as we have to. We have to beat that media and those misinformation nonsense that they're putting out there. So this is an article. Let's bring on Brian Hooker first of all. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning, Polly. How are you? Good to see you.
I'm good. It's good to see you too.
Thank you.
This journalist, Brandy Zadrozny, from NBC. Well, I don't know how you say her name, but anyway, She's been on our back and chasing after Children's Health Defense, and she's not very pleasant at all. And she has written this article, which is pretty much all complete lies. So let's break this down. The first thing she says is Children's Health Defense exploited. So just to remind our viewers, this is when Brian Hooker, Brian Burrows, and myself went down to the Mennonite community to find out for ourselves what was really going on, because they claim that two young girls had died from measles and they were unvaccinated. And so we thought, well, we'll go and find out. So the first thing she says is they bought cameras and conspiracy theories. Well, we bought cameras, that's correct, and we listened. We went down there.
We listened. We asked questions. We did analysis. I don't remember bringing forward any type of quote unquote conspiracy theory. I'm a scientist, and I deal in scientific facts. That's really too bad that Brandy feels that way, but that's not what happened.
No, but the whole article is just one lie after the other. She says that, how disgusting it is that vitamin A and D was handed out. She says neither treatments can prevent or cure measles. Well, Brandy, it did. We saw it. These children were recovering from their vitamin A, vitamin D.
Part of the standard of care on the CDC website is high dose vitamin A for the first 2 days of a measles infection. In fact, that's what they were giving in Covenant Children's Hospital in Lubbock, Texas. And it wasn't vitamin D, it was vitamin C. And through the very, very gracious work of Dr. Ben Edwards, then we had lots and lots of natural cod liver oil. It's a natural source of vitamin A. And then we also had vitamin C. And vitamin C really, really strengthens your body when you're ill. It very much helps when you're ill. Nobody said that vitamin C treated measles, but there were plenty of infections. There were plenty of measles infections. There were plenty of secondary infections. There were plenty of, upper respiratory viral infections. There were a lot of different things that were going on in Seminole, Texas. And so, Brandy really needs to clue in. Maybe she needs to read the CDC website a little better. But that's why those treatments were being used. And Polly, you're absolutely right. They were effective.
Oh yeah, they were effective. They were amazing. So sorry, Brandy, but the cod liver oil and the stuff that Dr. Ben Edwards was doing was curing these children or helping them get over their measles. It was fantastic to watch. But now, the other thing that she and others are losing their mind, there's this thread on X over, is the fact that Dr. Ben Edwards had measles when he was treating the children. So let's just clear this up. We're going to run this clip in a second, but let's just clear this up for a second. First of all, Brandy, listen very carefully. Dr. Ben Edwards had multiple MMRs. So he was nicely vaccinated, as you would like, properly vaccinated. He goes in to treat these children and he catches measles from these children. So I don't think she understands. There's something brain connection not quite working there. Let's run this clip a second. Maybe not. How are you feeling? Touch measles yourself?
Yeah, I was pretty achy yesterday.
Yeah.
Did you ever not have measles as a child?
No, I didn't MMR as a kid.
How many MMRs did you get?
I'd have to go back and look. I
But
don't
a few.
So good.
Yeah.
That doesn't work then, does it?
No, apparently not. Just wear off.
But you're feeling all right?
Today I'm better, yeah.
You just spots here or on your body as well?
Just my face. Yeah. It came yesterday afternoon. I was achy. Friday afternoon, achy. Started, and yesterday was pretty achy, little mild fever. Spots came in the afternoon. Today I woke up feeling good. So, mild case.
You're an amazing human being, you know that? You should know that. Thank God for you.
I know.
We don't want to keep you up with your people.
I'm just doing what any doctor should be doing.
He is?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Doing what any doctor should be doing, working in a measles clinic with individuals that had the measles. There were multiple exposures. There were, I don't know, at least 70 individuals that came through that particular clinic in that 2-hour period. All of them had either had the measles, had children with the measles, or there were multiple families with the measles. And, that was, the possibility of him individually infecting any one of those was absolutely nil. I mean, there were so many, measles is very infectious, and there was just a huge amount of exposure overall. And the fact that he was actually treating these kids, making them better, preventing them from going to hospital, was absolutely incredible. And there was no fear there either regarding individuals that didn't have the measles that were, perhaps bringing in their kids of getting the measles.
The other thing she accused us of is making loads of money from our trip down there. Well, first of all, we didn't make any money. In fact, it cost us quite a lot. Brian had to fly in. The other Brian and I had to drive.
Right.
I don't know about you, but I didn't make any money. Did you make any money?
No, I made absolutely no money. I know that Dr. Ben had, he footed the initial bill for all the vitamin A and vitamin C that was distributed. Then I set up personally a GoFundMe account for the families in the Mennonite community. And we raised, approximately $17,000 that went, equally to the families that had children pass away. And that's the money. That is absolutely money. And so, people looked at the GoFundMe account and, made all of these horrible assumptions. And it wasn't even a CHD endeavor. But there's so much that's misconstrued, about this. And the last thing that we would do is make money off of the tragedy that these families face due to hospital error.
That's right. And also, while we're talking about money in Children's Health Defence, every cent that you all donate, it goes towards either the legal costs or Brian. I mean, the science department, you're doing
Right.
studies the whole time. You have to pay researchers and stuff, I presume.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
No one's walking around in Gucci, people, or whatever it is.
if only. Yeah. I'm able, pay my electric bill. That's great.
Right. I mean, we're doing this because we want to stop this misinformation. Brian, I cannot tell you how much I get so frustrated with the media, because these young parents who know not what they do, they don't understand the corruption behind the bought media. And then
Right.
people like Brandy are doing massive damage.
Absolutely. There's so much damage that's being done. There is so much misinformation in that article, and being able to get down that really what we were trying to find, Polly, was the truth. And we were working with these families we were able to obtain medical records. They were medical records that were properly, legally released to the doctors and scientists. There are just a few of us that looked at those medical records and were able to ascertain exactly what happened. And, these girls did not die of measles. They absolutely did not die of measles. The first girl died from mycoplasma pneumonia, and then the second girl died from very, very refractory E. coli infection that was also caused of pneumonia. That was the cause of death.
So once again, is there anything else in that article from Brandy that you want to bring up, or should we just say this is just giving you the public an understanding of what nonsense they print in mainstream media?
Absolutely. It's kind of nice to be able to comment and then have selective memory and forget about it. But we get concerned because it's doing a significant amount of damage because it is misinformation.
Yeah, and they say the press is saying that measles is spreading around the world, and that apparently a baby has died in Canada. I don't know if it's true. We can't get those medical records, but it would be good to do that because really and truly, nobody in this day and age should die from measles, correct?
Absolutely. Nobody should die of measles. It just should not happen. Sorry about my video. I have a guest here.
Oh, the lovely Steve.
He got dressed and is ready to roll. No, this is we work so hard to inform people with CHD so they can make a choice.
Yeah.
They can make a choice. We do not give out medical advice. I didn't tell these people not to vaccinate. You didn't tell these people not to vaccinate. We give them the choice and we present the information so they can make an educated, informed choice. It's called informed consent.
So just to summarize this up, everybody, if you're listening, we heard about these deaths in the Mennonite community. We went down there to investigate. We didn't give out any medical advice, as Brian said. We interviewed at the clinic, we interviewed Dr. Ben Edwards, and then we interviewed many parents with their severely vaccine injured children down in that community. They are an amazing community. I very much doubt that they invited Brandy down to the Mennonite community. She says she went down there. Brandy, to you, please do better journalism, because what you're doing is actually putting up such dangerous misinformation that children will potentially die because of your work. So please do better.
Absolutely. You can check out my paper and my works and the works of other CHD scientists on PubMed, the National Library of Medicine.
Well, Dr. Brian Hooker, thank you for all the work you're doing. Thank you for being on so early this morning. Big love to Steve in the background, and we'll get you on. We're very excited. Just quickly to say, you have a very special guest on Friday, do you not?
Oh my goodness, can I say?
You can say.
Dr. Dave Weldon himself. It was awesome. He was amazing. I was like in awe, fanboying out. But he did a great interview.
Okay, so that is going to be airing on Friday. Very, very exciting. And make sure you all tune into that. So thank you, Dr. Brian Hooker. Go and look after Steve.
All right. Thank you so much.
We'll speak to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, everybody. So now we're going to bring on one of my favorite people in the whole world, Nurse Angela. Good morning, Nurse Angela.
Good morning, Polly. It's so great to see you again. How are you?
I am good. And so just to remind our viewers about Angela and I have been working really closely over these tragic SID deaths. And I have to say, Angela, you really are, what a great name. You are an angel. You basically, she jumps in, viewers. The second we hear of a death, she jumps in, she contacts the parents. You never leave those parents alone. Those parents tell me what you save them in everything you do. So the work you're doing is critical, crucial, and brilliant. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Polly. It's very necessary. These poor people, they're lost and they have a deceased baby or babies, and some of them are being accused of, homicide. So it's really important to have these services available to them because it's just catastrophic.
Now, do we have any update on any of the cases that we've been following? And obviously there's some things you can't talk about because of the way it's going at the moment, but what can you talk about and update us?
Yeah, so with the Sanaya Carter baby that passed away. She was the 12-month-old, the beautiful little girl. And she died within 12 hours of getting 6 shots. She was being caught up for missing her 6-month appointment. She, 12 hours later, was having multiple seizures, taken away by ambulance, gets to the hospital, goes into cardiac arrest, and passes away. The coroner that did her autopsy had found a swollen brain and had alerted both Steve and myself to his findings. And that prompted us to want to do an independent autopsy on this baby. And what I was really disappointed to find when we got the death certificate back for this little girl was that they classified her death manner undetermined, and cause of death would be sudden unexpected death in childhood, which is basically SIDS. She just happened to be 12 months old, so they can't call it a SIDS baby. But, you know, a SIDS death, it really is, you walk into the room in the middle of the night and you find a baby passed away. This baby was seizing after vaccines, went into cardiac arrest, and they still consider it manner undetermined and a SIDS baby. And they didn't even put that the baby had a swollen brain. So they're getting away with this by not properly classifying the death reports. And it's so catastrophic. I mean, fortunately, these mothers knew exactly what caused their babies to pass away, but I'm sure there's lots of moms out there that their babies die on day 5, day 7, and they don't think to associate it with the vaccines. So it's really, really upsetting. With the Shaw twins, it's also very upsetting. They haven't been, I don't know how you would say, but released. They're still considered suspects. They have not been told that they're no longer suspects in the death of these 2 beautiful twins. And these babies these are vaccine deaths. I mean, they got the shots. They were sick immediately. They were in the hospital the next day. They were sick the whole week and passed away. And this mom and family were so worried and calling the pediatrician's office, asking for visits, and they pass away only to be left with, potential homicide charges, which is, there's nothing worse than losing your babies and then all on top of it to be questioned by the police officers and interrogated for days on end is sickening.
Can you talk about this, the days after when the babies die afterwards, the time frame of it? So it's up to 7 days. And then after that, it's not considered a vaccine injury death. Can you talk about that?
That was just in the Miller paper, the 2021 Miller paper, which is a peer-reviewed paper in toxicology. And basically what they did is they looked at 2,605 deaths that were reported to VAERS from the time period of 1990 to 2019, so almost a 30-year period. So they looked at these 2,600 deaths, and what they found was that 58% happened within the first 3 days, and close to 80%, 78.3, happened within 7 days. So that just goes to show that there's this huge correlation with these reports to VAERS with these SIDS deaths, that they, almost 80% of them happen within that first week. If that doesn't tell you what's causing these SIDS deaths, I don't know what is. I mean, we know about the fraud that has happened with the whole SIDS epidemic back in the 60s when they had organized vaccination campaigns. They started to notice a rise in these so-called crib deaths. So in 1967, they labeled these cribs death as SIDS. And parents were panicking and freaking out about, oh my gosh, is it safe to get our kids vaccinated? So then come 1990s, where parents were, terrified, and they had this back to sleep campaign because they had to blame it on something other than the vaccine. So in 1992, they came up with this safe sleeping. Also, what happened during that time period is they reclassified the cribs deaths to suffocation, undetermined causes, unknown causes. And what we found was that the SIDS deaths did not decline like they said because of this reclassification. So just really shows how they manipulate data, how there's fraud involved with this. I mean, it's really, really upsetting. And one of the one of the things that I did recently, Polly, is I called a pediatric practice. They're a really unique, special practice in the Bay Area. And I know them intimately because I worked with them for 17 years out of this one hospital. And they've been around since the 90s, so almost 30 years in practice. And I called and I asked the lead doctor at this practice, so how many SIDS deaths have you had since 1990s? They currently have 800 patients. They always have between 2 and 3 doctors working. And she said, Angela, we've never had a SIDS death in our entire practice. We've never had a SIDS death. And I said, how do you get away with that? I mean, that's just not the norm. We see these SIDS deaths. And she said, well, as you know, most people that come to our practice choose not to vaccinate. And those that do want to vaccinate their kids, we do them as safe as we possibly can. And I don't believe that there's any safe vaccines, but the way they do them as safe as they possibly can, if the parents choose to vaccinate, is they don't recommend any in the first year whatsoever. And then after the first year, they space them out only one at a time, and they delay everything. And with even vaccinating some kids, they've gotten away with 0 SIDS death. This practice also has 0 cases of autism. So, which is really rare in California, because in California, 1 in 12.5 boys, 12.5 boys has autism. So to have a practice in the Bay Area that has never, ever had a case of autism, our government should be looking at this practice as a model. How do you guys have the healthiest kids in the country? You have no SIDS, you have no autism.
Angela, so I want to get to those young parents before we have to record any more deaths of these beautiful babies. So if a young mother would say, well, look, I mean, first of all, they don't know. None of them know that their babies could actually die from it. So we've got to get that across. And so what I think I'm trying to ask you is, what happens to a baby when they get vaccinated that makes them pass away? Do you know? So that they understand that is their brains swell, their brains are on fire, they scream. We know from the bus tour that the early vaccines it's been called the DTaP scream, because the babies just scream and scream and scream so much after their vaccines. How can you help them, speak to them and talk to them about what it is that's going on if you decide to vaccinate? Sorry.
Yeah, if you decide to vaccinate, especially in the case of these preemie babies, there is actually literature out there that shows that there are some pediatricians that will even monitor these preemies after giving a DTaP vaccine, because especially if they've had apneic spells in the NICU, because they know that it can cause respiratory depression. The mechanism of action, what they're finding in these autopsies of these SIDS babies, they're finding congestion in the lungs, edema, they're finding inflammatory cytokines in the respiratory systems. We know that the adjuvants do cross the blood-brain barrier, and they are toxic to the brain. In the case of Sanaya, her little brain was swollen, and it is actually recognized in vaccine court that if you get the DTaP and you pass away within 24 hours of an inflamed brain, you can get compensated, because it is a known fact that the DTaP can cause death. So they do compensate for that one. So I really think that if all parents knew the risks involved, that if this one shot you give your child could cause your child to be autistic or pass away, I don't know any parent that would ever give their kid a vaccine. I really don't. And Polly, my greatest regret in my life, I don't have very many. My greatest regret was vaccinating my kid, and then my 17 years at the hospital taking care of pregnant moms, giving them those vitamin K and Hep B shots, especially the Hep B. I mean, they're all dangerous, but if I could go back in time and do it all over again, I would never give a single shot ever.
Nurse Angela, also, we had another nurse on that told us that, when they give the Hep B on day one, these new babies, that they also have the crash carts on standby, because they know that a lot of these babies go into anaphylactic shock or whatever. Have you heard that?
I have heard that. Yes, I have heard that. I fortunately have never had a baby have that happen. But I was also one of those nurses. as best as I could, I would educate my patients because I never believed in a Hep B. I knew that there was no rationale for giving that. And I would actually inform the parents and tell them, as long as the mom is Hep B negative, it's not necessary. So I gave fewer Hep B shots. The vitamin K, I did give a lot. And, fortunately, I didn't have any problems, but you never know. You send the patient home. These days, parents stay at the hospital for a day or two, and then they go home with a normal vaginal birth. And so you don't know the sequelae of what happens later. You can't just monitor them for such a short period of time, which is generally what they do with these vaccines. I think Hep B was only monitored for about 5 days for side effects and reactions. And as I know very intimately with the COVID vaccine, these reactions last months, years, the rest of your life. So it's really catastrophic.
Angela, have you ever dealt with families who have unvaccinated babies that have died from SIDS?
No, I've never seen it. One case that I really remember in particular at the hospital, which stood with me, it's haunted me for a very long time. It was Christmas Eve. It was the 24th of December, and we had a family come in to the emergency room, and the baby had CPR in progress in the ambulance, and the mother and the father were yelling and fighting with each other. And we got the baby and we did CPR, and the baby, was passed away. But what had happened the day before was the parents had taken the baby for the vaccines, and that baby was screaming all night long, just high pitched, unconsolable screams. And so the mom and the dad were taking turns bouncing the baby and walking the halls. And the dad let the mother take a nap and go to sleep. And he fell asleep in a recliner with the baby on his chest. And he blamed himself for when he woke up, the baby was limp and blue and, cold. And he blamed himself for having the baby on his chest. And the mom blamed him for killing their child. And they were just, devastated. And I found out later on that they divorced because of this, him blaming himself for this death, and the way it just destroys families. We know babies are nose breathers. First of all, they can breastfeed because they have this great anatomical way of breathing through the sides of their noses. So to have a baby on your chest is a natural bonding experience. And for doctors to make parents believe that they killed their babies because of the baby sleeping on the chest, I'll never forget that Christmas. It was terrible. So
tragic, Angela.
yeah, I think that if every parent had true informed consent, we wouldn't be giving a single shot.
Yeah, so I think really what we want to say to those young mums is, listen, this is how it's going to be. If you choose to vaccinate and do not look at all the safety studies and everything else that we told you about not vaccinating, if you choose to vaccinate, then your baby may die. And if your baby dies, the police will be involved and you will be held as a suspect. Yes. And your whole family, or if you have other children, all of their clothes and toys will be turned over. And this will go on for a long time. And people, even though you didn't do it, people will still, your neighbors and everything will always be wondering, did you? So your life is going to go from a beautiful, happy life to pure hell in just a matter of moments from that needle going in.
Absolutely. The Shaw twins, I mean, their babies passed away on May 1st. We're June 9th now? They're still suspects. They had to leave their house. The news media made them out to be, potential homicide, case, suspected foul play. I mean, these parents, their reputation, their, where they live, it's a small town. Everybody knows everybody. They got death threats. They've had horrific things happen to them. And the most horrific was losing these beautiful little babies. But then what's been left in the aftermath is just disgusting. Really.
And I know, Angela, we're not allowed to talk too much about these two twins, but I just want to say this, and do stop me if I shouldn't be saying this, but I want to say this. So they're saying, the other side, if you like, the prosecution side, they're saying that it can't be the vaccines.
Oh yeah, it's everything but the vaccines. Because their rationale is that these babies died at the same time. So it can't be the vaccines. And also because of the fact that they're not identical twins, they're fraternal twins. But these babies I mean, it's just such an obvious case to me. These babies, first of all, the parents asked me to help them with an independent autopsy. I don't know anybody that would murder their babies that would ask for help to do an independent autopsy to find the cause of death. Second of all, they were premature. Babies, premature brains are a lot more sensitive than full-term babies. They got vaccinated the same day. They got a flu vaccine, which the father has issues with. They were in the emergency room blue 24 hours later. The mom wakes up, they're blue, they're limp, they're heavy, rushes them to the ER. They're sick the entire week, not eating, not drinking, bile coming out of their diapers. Mind you, also as well, the ER doctor did admit that they were having a reaction to the immunization and gave them Tylenol and sent them home, which we know Tylenol depletes glutathione. It reduces the fever, which our bodies need to. That's our way of detoxing and getting rid of things, is by having a fever. So the babies were sick all week long. The day before they passed away, mom calls the doctor and says, I need to bring them in. They're not well in the morning, and there was no walk-ins available. And then they kind of bounced back later on that day and had a little bit better of a day and passed away the next morning. So for me, it's an obvious. I mean, they were healthy, well babies. They get the vaccines. They're in the emergency room and sick the entire weekend. So to not be looking at this as a cause of death is beyond me. And I think that it's purposeful, because I think that it would look really bad to show the world that these twins died from the vaccines. So it has to be something other than that in their eyes.
Right, but and we also know that the coroner has said that they were not suffocated, so she didn't suffocate them. So
No.
how is she supposed to have killed them?
Exactly. I don't know how. I mean, it's been almost 6 weeks now. They would have found suffocation. They would have found drownings. By this point, toxicology would be back. There's nothing. They have no other evidence that I am aware of, other than the fact that there's 2 dead babies at the same time. So.
No, Sandra, you do such amazing work. Again, thank you for everything. Vacsafety.org, everybody. If you want to follow Angela, are you on social media as well?
Yes, we're on, Vac Safety. Yeah,
okay.
BSRF.
All right, well, and thank you so much for everything that you're doing. And please do come back on again. I do so, sending you so much love and gratitude for everything you do, Angela.
So much love to you, Polly. Take care.
You too.
All right.
Okay, everyone, I'm going to hand the show now over to Claire Dooley from Mothers to Be section, and then our Gardasil story. So from me, pray big, stand firm, never settle, and I'll see you very soon.
Hi guys, I'm Claire Dooley. You're watching CHGTV, and this is the Mothers to Be segment where we cover all things fertility, preconception, conception, postpartum, and up to the first year of life. And so today we're going to be covering chiropractic care in pregnancy. And I have one of my favorite people joining me, one of my favorite chiropractors. I actually saw her during my pregnancy, and I'll share some details about this. But Dr. Vicki Master, she's been a chiropractor for over 36 years and is just so passionate about helping children and has a really deep belief in our body's innate way of healing itself. She's author of a book called The Miracle Within, and a leader in my eyes in both the children's health defense and Weston A. Price communities. And, just a really empowering person in education, natural living, informed health decisions. She's based in Vermont and sees patients in this awesome barn setting. It's super cool. She homesteads with her family, leads a weekly community health call that supports others during this time of profound, awakening. And so we're just really excited to have you on the show, Dr. Master.
Thank you, Claire. It's such an honor to be here. And when I first saw your show, I knew that a chiropractor had to come on because our work is so important for the future of humanity, just to make good decisions and be supported through the journey that can be so challenging for young families and couples.
Absolutely. And I think that when it comes to chiropractic, a lot of people think of more symptoms-based uses, right? So we think about, I had an injury, I had something go wrong. But what about when everything seems okay? And, why would someone see a chiropractor preconception, during conception, during pregnancy, and even whenever the baby is a newborn. What's the benefits for a mother?
Well, if you know anything about the body, the nervous system is the master system. It's the brain and the spinal cord that was first created when the sperm and the egg come together. And through the brain and the spinal cord, pop out the nerves as the baby is developing within those first couple of weeks. So I meant the organs, I'm sorry. So we know that if you have a healthy nervous system, brain and spinal cord, and a healthy spine, and there's good flow of nerve flow to all those cells, because the nervous system powers every cell and helps also coordinate the functions of the body, then everyone will be better off. So as a mother, a future mother that's nervous about possibly, being fertile, and a husband who also, or a partner that is looking to also create life, it's really smart, the sooner the better, to start chiropractic care, because everything is powered through the nervous system and through the spine. And people look at chiropractic as something for pain relief. And yes, it does. It's very effective for natural pain relief, but there's so much more to it. And for the young couples that are looking to start a family, there's no better way to just be more assured, be calm, and be ready for the body to start producing and allowing life to start forming within.
I actually remember you, whenever I first came to see you, you were very educational to me in so many different ways. And you showed me this whole chart and you explained subluxations and how different, so subluxations, you will be able to explain this better than I will. But yeah, I would love for you to go into that and how, the kind of these fundamentals in chiropractic care that some people might not understand yet.
Yes. Oh, I wish I had my spine right now, but basically, the brain and the spinal cord is the central nervous system. And then how does the brain and spinal cord reach the rest of the cells? Because it literally powers every single cell in your body. It's through the spinal nerves. So from the time we're born, the spine, is starting to develop, and the spinal nerves are powering the cells and giving life to all those cells. And by starting with chiropractic care before you conceive, you'll have a better chance of conceiving. But also, as the baby's developing within the pregnant mom, the baby can get pushed into weird positions that are not very easy for the baby to develop. And if the mother's pelvis is not fully relaxed, and, depending on her lifestyle or her history, by getting adjusted through pregnancy, that's really helping the pelvis to expand and allow the baby to fall into the perfect position, so that the baby can grow properly without interference, and also the mom will be able to carry that baby more easily. And yeah, and then once the baby's born, which could be like a trauma to the baby, often it can be, a little bit not unexpected delivery, then by checking the baby when it's first born, that baby also will be more able to, interface in the world in a way where everything is working better, and, less stress on the nervous system, so that health can easily flow to all the cells. But yeah, basically the brain and the spinal cord, the spine, it's movable. And then by gently checking the spine of either the adult or the baby, we can be more assured that there's good nerve flow to all the organs, glands, blood vessels, and muscles and joints, everything literally. So that baby has the best chance going forward for a healthy and developmentally perfect life.
Yeah, I love one thing that you showed me was also not just, that it's an adjustment, but you also taught me some exercises to do to help with my posture. So some of it was almost this hybrid of physical therapy, which I thought was really cool. Whenever Al was born, you lived pretty far. So I ended up actually seeing a chiropractor for her. She was having issues breastfeeding, and, I was told by several lactation consultants that she had tongue and lip ties and that they would need to be released. And at Mothers to Be, we actually did another segment on this, so you can find that on the CHGTV homepage. But yeah, I ended up actually seeing a chiropractor around 4 or 5 times. And when you talk about adjusting a baby, I think people picture, on TikTok or Instagram, how you see these just, people just cracking the mess out of this person. But really, she adjusted her so gently. I didn't even know that she had adjusted her. I mean, it was these very slight movements that she was doing. After every chiropractic visit, Elle would just pass out. I mean, she would sleep so good for like 3 or 4 hours. And then I really did notice an awesome difference in how she could nurse. And by the 4th or 5th time we had gone, a lot of her feeding issues had resolved. And the chiropractor also gave me a lot of different, she gave me a lot of different tips as well on positioning and stuff. But I was really shocked at how much she was able to help me versus just a pediatrician or lactation consultant. She included the body work, she included everything. So I do know that there is another kind of technique in chiropractic care. And I would love for you to tell us more about it. That's more tailored just for a pregnant mom from conception to postpartum.
Yes, and that technique is called the Webster technique, and it was developed by Larry Webster in the 1990s, I'm pretty sure, maybe the late 80s. And it's basically releasing any restraint in the pelvis so that the mother, like I said before, so that her pelvis can adapt to any changes with the developing baby inside as it grows. And, like I said, also, it is, if to be the most assured that things are going to go well, starting chiropractic before you even conceive is really smart. And I'm not saying that it helps, like I can't quote that, this helps fertility, but from many chiropractors' experiences as well as my own, I've never had a patient not get pregnant that's trying to get pregnant, except someone that had a bifurcated uterus. In other words, the uterus was there was like a segment between that and the baby couldn't implant. And that was more anatomical. So it really helps for starting before you even think about it. But let's say you're already well developed into your let's say 2 months pre delivery. It's never too late, even 2 days pre-delivery, to get your spine checked and start having a certified chiropractor, certified through the Webster technique, check your spine and start working with you just to allow it to expand and come into place so that the baby again can grow in a way that is unrestricted within the mom's pelvis. But not just is it good for the baby, but for the mom, they've found that there's a faster delivery, there's less pain during delivery. And then even the baby, it's like a 2-for-1 adjustment because the baby also gets aligned through that adjustment in its own natural way. Because see, what we're taught as chiropractors is that we have this innate ability to heal, that God gave us the perfect body. And if we just take really good care of it and try to not put toxins in it, which is really hard in this world, but also to do the right things lifestyle-wise, then we can have good health. And chiropractic really helps with that, to just help the body to be more, able to heal itself naturally, because we are designed to do that. But, the way that the medical profession has trained its doctors and the healthcare system and the patients, it's really a disempowering mindset. And as chiropractors that work with pregnant moms and children, we want to empower you to know that your body is smart, your body is strong, and your body knows how to heal. You just have to do the right things and not, try to do less interference to it. In other words, less drugs, less chemicals, less vaccines. And then, you have a likelihood of having better health. But for the mom, just one more thing, this is so important, is that there's so much fear that is implanted into the moms and the dads brain when they find out that they're pregnant and they start going to a medical doctor. And that fear is already starting to reduce the vitality of the baby's ability to grow and the mother's ability to be relaxed. So the more relaxed the mother, the more healthy her pregnancy will be, more trusting the mother in her body and its ability to grow a baby and deliver a baby, the better the baby will be, because the baby is affected in the pregnancy too, like even mentally. So the autonomic nervous system is part of the nervous system, and that's a balance of the fight or flight, like going into fear and panic, and also rest, relaxation, and restoration, which is the parasympathetic. So when you have a good balance of both, then your body's, the most prepared for whatever comes its way. And that's what chiropractic does. It helps to balance that parasympathetic and sympathetic. It just happens with the chiropractic adjustment. And for like a mom that's pregnant and going into labor, that's probably one of the most important things, is that she's relaxed and she has confidence that her body can do this. And then she's been working with her chiropractor, and her chiropractor is kind of guiding her in that mindset and giving her that confidence and the body work and the healing adjustments that she needs.
Yeah, I think that that's something we really care about at Mothers to Be, is removing a lot of that fear from moms. And one of the t-shirts we're actually considering making right now is "Know more and fear less." And I think that's like a really good slogan. And I love how you mentioned trusting our bodies. I think when it comes to IVF and this whole industry that has been built around infertility, it's all based on this notion that our bodies are imperfect and we need someone outside of ourselves to fix the problem, versus, maybe our bodies are made perfectly. And I'm not saying that every single person is going to be able to conceive after addressing diet, nutrition, lifestyle, toxins, but I think most people would be able to, if you just allow the body to, if you give the body what it really needs to thrive. And so going back to what you're talking about with the emotion of the baby, emotion of the mother, how does that even relate to small children? And what about the development of children into, high school years and beyond? Like, how is chiropractic involved in the lifelong effects?
Okay. Well, first of all, humans from birth on, there's lots of changes, especially in those first, years of life, like, from birth to teens to adulthood. And it's so stressful for young people. It's society's designing us to be stressed, and especially they're targeting the youth to be stressed. And so it's the same thing as a pregnant mom getting adjusted. It calms her nervous system down so she can handle whatever comes her way. And with children, it's the same exact thing. So, these kids many of them are forced to sit in the classroom. It's an uncomfortable situation that's not natural. We're not designed to sit in the classroom as children. We're designed to be free and learn and have more of a maybe homeschool scenario. And so just school itself can be really stress inducing. And by getting your kid checked and adjusted through their life stages, your kids will be able to adapt to whatever comes their way so much more easily. We also are supposed to teach the children the same thing I was just telling you, that your body is smart, your body is strong, your body knows how to heal. This is the spine, these are the nerves, they go to everything. And when your spine is working well and you're eating right and you're exercising and you're outdoors, you know, I've seen a decrease in ADD, ADHD, improved school scores, just a happier overall attitude to life, and just an ease, creating ease in the child's body so that they can also interact and interface with life in a way that's more compatible to success.
Yeah, absolutely. And
And also, so let me just say, with the developmental changes, if the child's in sports or has a fall or anything physical like that, that can also be aligned with, through those stages of development with chiropractic, so that instead of the problem getting worse like let's say the spine got twisted in a weird way from a fall or even from heavy backpacks, poor posture, looking at their cell phones all the time. Just getting realigned and allowing this child to know, wow, this is what it feels like to have my spine aligned. Like I didn't even know how to sit before, and now I can like sit because my body is now in an alignment that feels natural that I never had before. So it's just it is pretty magical to see a child like pre and post adjustment. And then once the parent sees that, they're going to want to continue that so that their kid gets the best ability to grow and thrive with chiropractic.
Yeah.
And kids, they love it. They love getting adjusted, by the way. That's the last thing. If you find a good chiropractor that knows how to connect with your child, they just can't wait to like, Mom, I need to get adjusted. I feel like something's not right. And so they become more in tune with their own body, which is something we really all need to do.
Yeah, whenever I was in high school, I played soccer, and we always went to the chiropractor through the years, and with my mom. But I always tell people that story because when they say, oh, chiropractic doesn't work, it's quack medicine or whatever. I was playing soccer, and I slid and did this crazy move trying to steal the ball from someone, and I couldn't walk for like 2 days. I don't know what happened, but I shifted something out of alignment in my hip, and I was in so much pain. And my mom was like, just go to the chiropractor. So I went, and the chiropractor adjusted me, and it was immediate relief. I could immediately walk, and the pain was immediately gone. And anyone else would have been going to physical therapy for months and all these different things whenever it was truly just an alignment issue and there was something wrong. So yeah, after that, I think I was like around 16, 17, I was like, this is awesome. And yeah, they do love it. Before we go, I wanted to touch on this real quick. We're talking about the nervous system and the parasympathetic and staying and out of the fight or flight. And for a lot of women at the end of their pregnancy, we're hearing about their blood pressure increasing, and that when they go to the chiropractor, it drops and goes back to normal, but then they go to the conventional doctor and it raises again. So can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, because the top and the bottom of your spine are more parasympathetic focused. So the chiropractor should know that by, making sure the base of your spine, of your skull, the bones there, that's where the brainstem comes through. And that's where the cranial nerves and the autonomic nervous system is most strong. And then also the very bottom of your spine. By focusing on those areas and making sure they're clear, all the things that stop fight or flight and help calm, relaxation, reset are being stimulated. And but basically it's just aligning everything and making sure the nerves are balanced. So one of the things that happens is the breath gets stronger. It's easier to breathe deeply. The digestion also is improved, and the healing of your body is improved, and you're just calmer. So that's why, because after the adjustment, if your blood pressure's up, it's because your body's like kind of in a state of let's go, like run and if you're calm after an adjustment, which is what happens, and you can see it, like I see it all the time in my practice, you can, it's just much better for your health. And when you go to a doctor, typically a medical doctor, you're more stressed. So the chances of you having high blood pressure, and then they're going to say, oh, you have high blood pressure. Maybe you need to go on some medication. But blood pressure is not also the best measurement of health. And they put a lot of emphasis on blood pressure in medicine. So you just have to be careful not to fall for that if they try to scare you. And then deep breathing. Deep belly breathing stimulates the same thing, that parasympathetic response of calming the body down, and it can actually reduce your blood pressure. And that's what the adjustment does as well.
It's amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I wanted you to tell us about, where everyone can find your website and your work and, get in touch with you.
Okay. Well, my website is fullifechiropractic.com. And my phone number's on there. You can even call me. I don't have like a scheduled computerized way to set up something, but I prefer just to talk to the patient personally before we make an appointment. Also, the ICPA for kids is a great resource, and I'm listed as one of the Webster certified chiropractors there. So the key is, I'm in Vermont, and if I can't, if it's too far for you, I can help you find a good chiropractor. And there are other chiropractic, pediatric organizations that work great with children and that train their doctors to really know how to teach them how to take care of children and pregnant moms. And it's this other one, and I didn't give it to you. It's called the Pediatric Experience. And this is another organization that trains chiropractors to be excellent pediatric and pregnant docs.
Well, thank you so much for sharing those resources, and thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's so important, you guys, to stick with chiropractic and even just explore that option if you haven't done it. I was someone who has never liked for my neck to be adjusted. So if you get the right chiropractor, like I was with Dr. Master, she would do these super gentle techniques. And, all chiropractors are so different. So just keep looking around until you find one that really fits with you and feels right with you. And honestly, just stick with them for life. Anyways, we're going to be showing some people's study stories today on Gardasil. So thank you so much for joining the Mothers to Be segment. And up next is Gardasil stories.
This story doesn't do it for you. Look at all the other stories. Hannah Robinson, Colton. The list goes on and on and on. How many more do you need to hear before you understand how dangerous this vaccine is? All right, let's hear from you both. So what's your name?
My name is Vicki Carey.
I'm Caitlin Carey.
It's lovely to have you both here. We did meet you last night, and you are, how old are you now?
I just turned 16th on the 9th of September, and I have been dealing with this for about 2 years now.
All right, so let's start off by going back to before you had your first Gardasil vaccine. Tell us about the type of person you were. What did you enjoy doing? What could you do then?
Oh, I was so active. I did karate. I was almost a black belt. I could take down a 40-year-old black belt who used to spar with me. I used to walk about 3 miles after school, and I went to a very open campus school where you have to go between building to building, and I used to wear a pedometer every day, so I walked about 10 miles every day, not including doing karate 3 days of the week, and then the other days of the week I wasn't at karate. I would walk about 3 miles. I loved being active. I loved going for walks, walking the dog every day, and just going places with friends and just doing a whole lot of things, and then
So there she is, doing karate, really active. And so you were, what belt were you?
I was a green belt.
A green belt.
And she was 1 belt away from black belt. When I took her for her 12-year visit with her pediatrician, who knew her from the time she was 3 years old, he said it was time for the Gardasil vaccine, and I hadn't researched. I wish now that I had, but I asked him, would you give this to your own child? And he said, absolutely. It'll keep her from having cancer when she's older. And he said, I plan to give it to my own children. So I trusted him, and it was my biggest regret to this day.
So he said he planned to give it to his own children.
Yes.
And you were telling me some of the other things the doctor told you.
I was 12 years old. I was in 7th grade, and he was saying, all right, so you're starting to mature, you've had your period for a while, you're going to be sexually active soon. And I was like, no, I don't think so. I'm 12. I'm still a kid. And I know a lot of people when they're 12, they think they're grown up, but I didn't really have any friends that were sexually active. I didn't really plan on being sexually active for a very long time. And he said, all right, so we're probably going to need to put you on the pill if you're not already. Are you on the pill? I was like, what? I thought that was for people who were older, like in their 20s. And he was like, no, you should try and be on that soon. You should definitely be on birth control soon, and I think it's time for Gardasil. And I didn't know what that was, but he told me it prevents cancer. And I had friends who had severe cancer. I knew somebody who almost died of cancer, a neighbor of mine. It scared me so much. And he said, well, HPV causes cancer, and if you get this vaccine, it's a series of 3, if you get it, you won't get cancer. And I was like, oh wow, oh my gosh, sign me up. I don't ever want to have cancer. I don't want my hair to fall out. I don't want to go through chemotherapy. And it's kind of ironic because my hair is falling out now, so.
She takes a shower and there's this much hair in the shower still. It's
okay. We're gonna get onto that because it's horrendous what's happened to you. So you heard about this vaccine that was going to stop you getting cancer, and you were both there together while this was going on. How did you put up as a mother with him talking to your 12-year-old daughter about contraception? And
well, I'm a high school teacher, so I know students are sexually active at a younger age, but I also know my daughter, and I knew she wasn't anywhere near that. And I said, no, absolutely not. She's young. I understand where you're coming from, but she's young and she's not that kind of kid, and we don't need to do that. It's not even an issue. So I just shut it down. But I didn't shut down the Gardasil talk because I trusted her.
of course. So it's a series of 3 shots.
Yes.
Isn't it? So you had the first shot. How were you? Did you just have the 1 shot that day?
Yes, that day. And she didn't have any reaction that we saw the first shot. And I realized we had to go back for the second and third.
And so how long after the second one?
Oh, maybe 2 weeks. And I didn't put it together till later because I didn't have it in my head that a vaccine could cause the symptoms that she was having.
At any point were you told by the doctor that there were any side effects whatsoever to this vaccine?
Never.
No, he said,
Never.
and I quote, it's completely safe. There's nothing wrong with it. I would give it to my own daughter. I would give it to my own daughter.
He planned to give it to his own children. So no, and in fact, they didn't give us. I remember getting a sheet. I didn't keep it, but I remember getting a sheet that they put together. It wasn't the insert, and it wasn't anything official. It was something the doctor's office put together, talking about how safe it was. And it's very rare that they might get lightheaded or something and need to stay at the visit a few minutes before they leave. That was the only thing that we were told. Not that she would end up disabled, for sure. If I had any inkling that she would be suffering, I never would have done it. But no, we were never told.
So you went back for the second one?
Went back for the second one, and I would say maybe a couple of weeks later, maybe 3 weeks later, she started having this barking cough, and she was diagnosed with lung spasms. I brought her back to the same pediatrician and said, what's going on? She had asthma as a child, so they thought it was the asthma kicking in. But she'd never had lung spasms before, never had dizziness before, and that's when it all kind of started. And she had just, for the next year, just one thing after another with bronchitis and sinus infections and more bronchitis and more lung spasms. It was really kind of centered in the lungs at that point. And she got her 3rd vaccine in July of 2013. And again, as I said, that whole period, that whole year after, it was just constant sickness and antibiotics and more antibiotics. And it was then in October 2014, Caitlin was diagnosed with hemiplegic migraine when she was 8. It's a familial condition. It's genetic. We've been tested. I get it too. They're migraines that cause paralysis on one side of the body or weakness. And it's transient. You have a migraine, you get that, and it goes away. You're fine. She was medicated for it for a couple of years and then was fine. She hadn't had a migraine in 2 years. So when things started happening, she was getting more headaches, dizziness, and all this happening, and weakness.
After the second vaccine.
After the second vaccine. They thought it was her hemiplegic migraine coming back again. But I said it's different. She had both legs weak. She couldn't walk. I'd have to walk her to the car from school.
And just you walking on the bus, just walking up these steps here, you get on the bus was a major ordeal for you.
Definitely. I'm surprised I didn't have an attack from it. I was clutching my chest. My chest hurt and it was pounding. We have stairs in my house. I have to take it about 2 steps at a time. It takes me 15 minutes to go up and down the stairs in my own home, or more than that, because I have to sit and I have to rest every few steps, or else as soon as I get to the top, I'm out.
But it was in December of 2014 when she had a sinus infection, and the doctor gave her a Z-Pak, antibiotic again, that within 20 minutes of taking it, she came to me and said, "Mom, I feel like I'm going to vomit." And within 5-10 minutes, I was struggling to keep her alive.
I remember it was the scariest, one of the scariest moments.
After the third. This was after the third.
Oh, now we're after the third.
Yes.
Okay.
I remember my eyes were rolling back in my head and my lips were turning blue, and I had had asthma attacks before, and this was much more severe.
It was not.
I remember my heart was pounding and I just couldn't breathe at all. I couldn't speak and I felt like I was going to pass out, and I was so scared. And then I went to the hospital. They said your potassium is dangerously low, put me on a potassium IV and sent me home.
And there was no reason. I mean, that's when I started looking. That's when I started trying to figure things out, because there was no reason for her to be hypokalemic, having low potassium. Low potassium comes from vomiting, diarrhea, anorexia, dietary things. There was no reason for Caitlin to be hypokalemic and to be weak and to be... And at the time, she also was diagnosed with a prolonged QT interval in her heart, so which is deadly. It can be deadly. So I was just trying to figure out what happened. This kid was healthy. She was in high school, the same high school where I teach. She was in karate, and now she's debilitated. She came home from the hospital that day, and she hasn't been the same since. She was weak. She was having convulsions. She couldn't walk. At one point, she was like an end-stage MS patient. In the bed, couldn't lift her head off the bed. I had to physically transfer her. And then she'd have these episodes of this paralysis. It wasn't just the left side, and it didn't come with a headache. It was just this weakness where she'd be sitting like this talking, and all of a sudden flop over like a rag doll, but conscious through the whole thing, and then screaming in pain, screaming on the couch in pain, and there was nothing that would help. It was just, that's the hardest part, is seeing your child in this kind of pain and agony, and nothing would help. We went everywhere to try to get help, all the major medical universities. We were told at one point by a doctor, take her for a walk on the beach. I kid you not. Get her feet in the ocean. Take her for a walk on the beach. I said, she can't walk. A walk on the beach is going to help her? And then you hear, well, she's a teenager. She had anxiety. I had anxiety from this. She needs counseling. I took her to a counselor. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, in addition to being a high school teacher of special ed. I know my child, but I said, all right, I'll take her to counseling. Counselor said there's no evidence at all of conversion disorder in this child. There's no trauma in her history. She has great supports. She's coping with it. The counselor said to her, she's coping with this better than I would. And then we got some neuromuscular testing done. And the technician that did the neuromuscular testing, they just start with a baseline. They'd stick needles in the hand and then the arm.
It was, I think, right here, right here, right here, and I think up here. And they started with the shock part, where it's an electric current, and it goes through here, and it's to get a response. You're supposed to go like that. I didn't move. They said, you're not getting any response whatsoever. They were saying, you are the first person in 25 years I've ever seen fail the baseline. And so instead of just doing it on the area that was affected the most, that I was supposed to be testing for, they did this for about an hour. They tried this hand, they tried my foot, nothing.
And they had no explanation. Their response was that they thought that they should redo the testing, put her through another 3 hours of torture, because they couldn't figure out what the results meant. We know now what the results were and why they don't understand the results. It's damage from this vaccine. But I hadn't put things together. And it was only when I went in desperation on social media and put her story out there with videos and just crying out for help that another mom contacted me and asked me if Caitlin had had the Gardasil vaccine. And I thought she was crazy, I'll be honest. I thought a vaccine wouldn't do this, and plus she had the vaccine now a year ago. Why would I think a vaccine would cause this? She said, please, your daughter's story from the potassium dropping, the paralysis, the allodynia, which is that pain that you can't touch her. I couldn't hug my child for months because it hurt.
I had to wear loose, soft clothing, and at times I couldn't wear anything because it was just, even the slightest little touch felt like somebody punched me. Like if somebody grabbed onto me, it felt like they broke my bones. I remember having these attacks, we called them, where my head would fall over. My mom would struggle to try to pick me up, and I would be in so much pain. I would just scream from it because it was just like punching somebody in a bad bruise whenever somebody just touched me. I used to have things with the few friends that still stuck by me after I had to leave school. Instead of a hug or something, you'd have to do a pinky touch.
She's like that iconic picture of a little girl, I think it is in Nagasaki after the atomic bomb, running through the street on fire, naked. Caitlin has times like that where she'll say, Mom, is it hot in here? And I'll say, no, honey, but I know it's coming. Her whole body feels like it's on fire. She has to get naked and stand with her hands out because even skin-to-skin contact with her arms down is too painful.
The pediatrician who told you that this vaccine was safe, I really hope you went back and told her what has happened to her.
Oh, yes, I have. Well, what happened was I went and requested the records. I knew that at this point, when this other mom came to me or contacted me and said, please look at the vaccine because my daughter's having the same exact symptoms, I started doing the research. Too late, but I did. And that's when it all came together, and I saw so many stories, as you see, of the same kinds of things that these girls are suffering with, and now boys too. I went and requested her medical records, and that's something I suggest everybody does, by the way, because I found glaring errors in there. They said that she had ADHD, and there was an entry in there that was obviously not her. She was 12 years old, and it said doesn't play well with others, getting in trouble at school. We're going to restart her stimulant medication.
Doesn't share building blocks.
Yeah, it was so
like...
not her. So I recommend everybody.
At 12 years old, you don't share buildings.
Right.
I was reading Romeo and Juliet, and they were saying she's having trouble playing on the playground.
So it was clearly not
sharing building
her.
blocks.
So
It was an error.
basically, some other child's details were put on your medical records, and some other child has got marked down they had Gardasil. It's probably age 2.
Exactly. So I recommend everybody get their medical records and really closely examine them. But that's when I started putting things together. It wasn't until then that I really sat down with a medical record and a piece of paper, and I wrote down every date and every visit and what happened. And then it was crystal clear to me. It was after the second Gardasil vaccine that these problems started happening. And I didn't put it together until then. And then as soon as I did that, and I looked at on the internet and all these young women all over the world that are having similar issues after Gardasil, it all.
And there's so many.
So many.
Ridiculous amounts.
And I'm a high school teacher. So, and I'm in tune, I teach special education. We had a girl, and obviously I won't say her name, but she wanted to be in the Special Olympics, and she needed to have a physical exam done in order to qualify and to be in the Special Olympics. She went to the doctor. She came back, brought in the paperwork to my colleague and friend across the hall. And the day after her visit, she was complaining that her legs were weak and she couldn't walk.
Hi.
And I said, "Hi, William." I said, "Did she get the Gardasil vaccine?" Of course, that's my first reaction. And we pulled out her paperwork for the Special Olympics. And the day before, she had had the Gardasil vaccine. So, of course, I have this dilemma as a teacher and as a mother of an injured girl. What do? Do I contact this mother? Do I not? So it was later in a meeting, I actually did say something to the mom. This is the whole part about being brave, and I've decided I'm not going to be quiet anymore. And if it means risking my job, that's what I do. But it's so important. And I asked the mother how our girl was feeling. She's in my class. And the mother said, horrible. She's been in the ER countless times with asthma, lung spasms, and this weakness in the legs. And they don't know what's wrong with her. Now she's on a ventilator, not a ventilator, the nebulizer every morning before she comes to school. She never had those problems before. And that's when I decided to share with the mother what happened to Caitlin. I didn't say, your daughter's been injured. I said, this is what happened to my daughter. And the mother said to me, I knew it. In my heart, I knew it was that vaccine because she never had the problems until she had that vaccine. So I see it. I have another colleague whose daughter had a seizure disorder. And she was seizure-free for 3 years, had the Gardasil vaccine, and the next month is having her
The
seizures.
symptoms for Gardasil victims, they're so similar, so striking. The more that we're going around and seeing, it's just, I can tell a Gardasil victim now.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And the seizures they have are different from the seizures of, say, the MMR vaccine child or another. It's a very glaringly obvious Gardasil.
Yes. Yes.
Seizure. Right, now has this been reported?
Yes, to VAERS.
Yes. Okay, good.
And also I updated the VAERS. I think that's important to share too, that as you go, it's important. Unfortunately, we keep getting new diagnoses. Caitlin now has cysts on her thyroid and she has autoimmune disorder. She's been diagnosed with that. So I updated the VAERS report as well after she was diagnosed with that.
Wow. That pediatrician, I really want to know, what did he say? Has he ever said sorry?
Oh,
Acknowledged it?
No,
they wouldn't even acknowledge the incorrect record.
it wouldn't.
You know,
He told me to take a vacation to Colorado, smoke some weed,
Yes.
and go to the beach.
Wow,
I
stop,
forgot
stop,
that.
stop,
Yes.
stop.
I totally
The
forgot.
pediatrician who said this vaccine was safe told you to go to Colorado and
Smoke some weed.
And is he still practicing,
He
this
is, yep.
pediatrician?
He said,
He
you
is.
just need to relax a little.
This is a
Another-
pediatrician that wanted to give you contraceptives at 12. Talk to you about being sexually active, give you the Gardasil, told you it was completely safe and he was going to do his own child, and now he's telling you to go to Colorado. It's
I totally forgot that.
unbelievable.
I blocked those things because it's so horrific. And that's the criminal point now. That's where I am. Because we've been everywhere to try to get help. And, you know, we get, that's interesting. We don't know what it is. Or counseling. You need counseling. Will you tell me where counseling... I'm a licensed clinical social worker, as I said. It's my profession. Counseling's not going to take care of nerve damage to this child's arms. It's not going to stop convulsions. And it's not going to stop hypokalemic periodic paralysis or allodynia. So there's no... I've come to the decision that Western medicine does not have our answers. My advice is do your research. Don't go in there blindly trusting. No matter how much you love the doctor, we loved her pediatrician. He'd known her since she was 3 years old. We adored him. And it was a mistake. It was a mistake to blindly trust what he said. If I had researched, if I had done my research, if I had talked to other parents before that visit, my daughter would be healthy today. It is not worth, like you said, Caitlin, it is not worth the risk. I don't care how rare they say it is. If it's 1 in a million children that is injured or killed by this vaccine, do you want your child to be that one child? Is it worth the risk? Look, pap smears can detect cervical cancer very well. The technology has improved, the science has improved. So is it worth the risk? It's not. My child lost her childhood, her adolescence, and who knows, from here. What she's lost, I don't know. Because things are still unraveling. Things are still unfolding. She has more damage as we go. It's not getting better. So it's not worth it.
The more we do this, the more we save, and we've got to keep going because there's so many people that are like us that truly trust their doctors over the stories. So loads of love to you both from everybody here.
This and all CHD TV programming is made possible by generous support from viewers like you. Please consider making a contribution today to keep our programming going strong. Thank you.